Hey everybody, this is @now_world_order, and this is going to be my review of WWE NXT Takeover 2 Fatal 4-Way. It's a long name. I'll just call it Takeover 2 from here on out. This was the newest WWE special on the WWE Network. It was yesterday, and for only $9.99 per month, I think it's a pretty damn good deal. I've talked about that in other videos. I'll get right into this review. I will be giving away the results of this show, so if you want to turn this off and avoid the spoilers, go ahead and do so right now. I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. And while you do, I'll get this out of the way right now. Please follow me on Twitter at NOW_WORLD_ORDER. I am closing in on 15,000 followers on Twitter, so thank everybody very much. And still right around 30 subscribers on YouTube, and YouTube is much newer, and it's something I'm still getting used to, and I haven't been making as many videos as I'd like to. I've got a lot of other stuff going on, but please subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow me on Twitter. Hopefully that was enough time for everyone to get off this video. If you do not want to know what happened last night, I'm going to jump right into this. So the first match of the night, we had the Lucha Dragons, Kalisto and Sin Cara, defeating the Ascension, Connor and Victor, for the WWE, I keep calling WWE, for the NXT Tag Team Championship. This was a good match. It was only 6 minutes and 30 seconds. I think with how strongly the Ascension was built up for the last year, that their title loss, should have been in a longer match. I understand they tried to fit a lot into this, and there were some things I could have done without on this show, but overall it was a good show. And for this being a 6.5 minute match, I thought it was very good. I actually really like the team of Kalisto and Sin Cara, in particular Kalisto. I think he's got a really bright future. I named him as one of the top 20 prospects in the WWE. I made that video before the signing of Kevin Steen, Kenta, Prince Devitt. There's been some big signings since I made that video. I'll redo that at some time in the future, but I see a really bright future for Kalisto, and this at least keeps Sin Cara doing something of some importance. And we all know this isn't the original Sin Cara, which is ironic because it's Sin Cara Negro, like the fake Sin Cara is now the real Sin Cara, because the real Sin Cara is no longer in the company. It's weird, it's confusing. I wish they'd drop the gimmick altogether and just make him some other luchador, but I think the name Sin Cara still holds some water in their eyes. So I'll talk a little more about the Ascension here in a little bit, but congratulations to Kalisto and Sin Cara. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do as the NXT Tag Team Champions. After that, we had kind of an impromptu match. It was Baron Corbin defeating CJ Parker in 31 seconds. It's funny how they tried to put over this as Baron Corbin's NXT debut. He's been on many NXT shows, and he's been on NXT shows on the WWE Network. I don't know who they're trying to fool, but definitely they've repackaged Corbin. I saw Baron Corbin wrestle Sami Zayn in New Orleans during the WrestleMania 30 fan access. And, he was entertaining. He actually had the majority of the offense against Sami Zayn, but that's kind of Sami Zayn's thing, is he's kind of the babyface in peril who does the big comeback. And anyway, Corbin looked about as impressive as he possibly could, but we'll see what happens with him in the future. Next up, we had Enzo Amore with Colin Cassidy defeating Sylvester Lefort with Marcus Louis. This was a hair versus hair match. Enzo Amore is gonna, I think, be pretty good on the main roster for the WWE if and when he makes it up there, because he's very good with the crowd. And Sylvester Lefort really reminds me of Sylvester Terkay, if you remember him. He looks like a smaller version of him with like the same name pretty much. What I didn't like about this was, the match itself was what I expected it to be. It wasn't great, it wasn't bad, it just was what it was. And Lefort has all this hair and a massive beard, and it would have been a pretty big deal to see him lose his hair. And he lost the match, so he was supposed to, and then they wound up dumping Louis' head into the into that hair removal cream or whatever, and I don't know. There was another segment that included that too, where we saw like most of his hair had been shaved off, in the back or whatever. I imagine this feud's going to continue to go on, but it is what it is. Colin Cassidy might have a decent future. He's got a look that WWE likes, and he's a bigger guy. Him and Omori's a pretty good contrast for a team. So that's all I'll say about that. Next up, we had Bull Dempsey defeating Mojo Rawley in 1 minute and 10 seconds. Pretty much a squash match. I'm really not big on Mojo Rawley. I think the fact that he has Earthquake's old, I can't remember what they called the move. I remember he did like the tremors before it, but basically it's just sitting down on somebody when they're on the ground. And it's a move that is effective and makes sense when you're like a giant guy, like when Earthquake did it, or when a guy like Yokozuna would do it, the bonsai drop from the corner, or Rikishi would just straight up sit on people. Those guys were huge. When Mojo does it, it's like it just comes off as really weird to me. His gimmick is weird to me too, that I don't get hyped, I stay hyped, but there's no way you're gonna not stop moving in a wrestling match. I'm just not into it. He seems like an athletic enough guy. I know he's a former football player, but Bull Dempsey, the verdict is still out as far as he's concerned. As far as in my mind, he's done fine for what he's been there to do so far. He looks like a kind of like a version of Taz. He reminds me a lot of old ECW Taz. Obviously not as extreme, no pun intended, but we'll see where that goes. And it looks like he's got a new finish, and he's doing the diving headbutt to the midsection. So we'll see what happens with Bull Dempsey. This just was a filler, and it didn't necessarily need to be there. The hair versus hair match I really could have done without too, because there wasn't an actual payoff really with that. And the Baron Corbin CJ Parker thing, the entrances took longer than the match. But that's what we got, and I'll talk about it. After that, we had the second to last match of the night. That was Charlotte defeating Bayley in a good match for the NXT Women's Championship. Charlotte's got a lot of talent. She definitely has that Ric Flair gene, and she's an entertainer. And I don't talk a whole lot about Divas wrestling, and I'm not that into it, to be honest with you, hardly at all. As a matter of fact, I fast forward through most of it when it's on the programming I watch. Trust me, I like what the girls look like, but I'll watch Paige and AJ Lee sometimes, and Natalia, and Charlotte, but it's not like it was where you had girls like Lita and Trish Stratus and Molly Holly and Jacqueline and Ivory and Jazz and Chyna, and I can name a ton of them, and they looked good, most of them. But even when they didn't, it was just so entertaining, and they were so good in the ring. Hopefully they're going to get back to that. I'd really like to see it, especially with how much Divas programming they show on the network and on cable television. I would really hope that they're building that up the best they can. Before I get into the main event, I also want to talk about Kenta came out, and anyone who's been following, independent wrestling or Japanese wrestling, or just really a fan of wrestling in general, should know who Kenta is. I've been watching him for a long time myself. I've watched him wrestle in Japan. I've watched his stuff when he was in Ring of Honor. He is very, very talented, and it was kind of weird to me with him out there speaking like broken English, and if I were them, I'd keep a translator with him or a mouthpiece of some kind. I thought Funaki was a pretty good fit because people recognize Funaki. They changed his name from Kenta to Hideo Itaki. What was it again? See, that's the problem. Is like everyone knows him as Kenta. It's Hideo Itami. And I don't really have a problem with it. It's just everyone knows it's Kenta, and I'm imagining this would mean we're not going to get Prince Devitt as Prince Devitt. We're not going to get Kevin Steen as Kevin Steen. Like, they're going to acknowledge that that's who they were, and then they will give them a new name and repackage them at least marginally. But this is part of the problem I had with the segment. So you've been building up the Ascension for the last year if you're NXT, right? And they were booked as these unstoppable forces, this team that just couldn't be touched. They go out there and lose in 6.5 minutes to cruiserweights, and then another cruiserweight in Kenta. I understand they're or Hideo Itami. I understand they're trying to build Itami as this international superstar, but the Ascension wasn't the right team to do that with, because they pretty much buried this team in one night that they had been building for a year. And I'm imagining they dropped the belts to go up to the main roster. So that's not really a good way of elevating them, in my opinion. But I'm looking forward to the in-ring debut of Hideo Itami, for sure, 100%. Next, we had the obvious match of the night, not even close. Adrian Neville defeating Sami Zayn, Tyler Breeze, and Tyson Kidd to retain the NXT Championship in a fatal 4-way match. There was a lot of stuff that happened in this match, and I thought it was very well done. I think the obvious route they're going with this, and I think they've been building to it since the day that Adrian Neville won the belt, is going to eventually be the big payoff, the big one-on-one, showdown between champion Adrian Neville, the reigning, defending, undefeated in 2014 champion, taking on Sami Zayn. And what I would love to see, and I don't know if we'll get it, but what I would love to see is the next time they do one of these NXT specials, or they just do like a really hyped up episode of NXT on the network, when we finally get that one-on-one match, whether it's the first time or a rematch, I can't. It's very hard for me to think that Sami Zayn at some point is not going to become the champion of NXT. If not, he'll be on the main roster before he wins the belt, if he wins it at all. But I feel like they've really been building him up within NXT to be the champion, at least for some sort of run before he goes to the main roster. Speaking of that, when they were all on Raw, Zayn and Neville were big time over. I mean, all four of the guys were over. And the fans are really, really behind Neville and Zayn. I think those two are going to make phenomenal additions to the main roster in the near future. But that all being said, what I would love to see, like I said, I don't think we're going to get it, but if they were smart, which, things are looking great for NXT in the future, I would have Sami Zayn defeat Adrian Neville for the belt, and then as Zayn's celebrating, he's finally done it. He won the championship. It's taken all this time. He shed the El Generico character that everyone knew and loved, but he was just as good as this guy without a mask, and his facial expressions, and the crowd's behind him, and they're into it, and they love this guy, and he finally did it after getting pounded over and over, and he was so close, he finally wins it, and then out walks Kevin Steen. That's exactly how I would book that. We got Sami Zayn there just celebrating with the belt, and then just a slow walk out, just like Ring of Honor. I mean, some sort of hardcore death punk metal music, and Kevin Steen just walks right out onto the entrance ramp and just, and then it's on, and we have El Generico and Kevin Steen in NXT. I don't think anything could be any better than that. And then you got Hideo Itami and Prince Devitt, and you got the guys already there. The future of the WWE is very, very bright, and a lot of that credit can go straight to Triple H. As much shit as that guy has gotten throughout the years for burying talent and not doing what was best for business, and all the stuff with Daniel Bryan over the past couple years, and everything else, and booking himself to the top, and screwing his way to the top, marrying the boss's daughter, yada, yada, yada. Say what you will, and I've said a lot of it. I was, even back when he was burying Rob Van Dam and Booker T and Scott Steiner and anyone else, Goldberg, I mean, what he's doing right now with NXT, he deserves all the credit in the world because he's building the future of that company by going out and hiring the best independent talent in the world. So my hat's off to you, Triple H. You know, I as a wrestling fan who's been watching these guys for over a decade, I really appreciate you giving these guys a chance because, you know, now you got like these guys like the Shield in the WWE. You've got the Wyatts. You've got I'm still big on Stardust. They got so much young talent that's so experienced, and they're gonna kind of slowly trickle in these guys that are currently in NXT onto the main roster. And I'm really, really looking forward to the future. So that is my review of WWE NXT Takeover 2 Fatal 4-Way. Please comment down below. Please, once again, subscribe to my YouTube and follow me on Twitter. It's all the same name, at NOW_WORLD_ORDER, at now_world_order. And on a side note, if you're a fan of the NFL, keep your eye on this Adrian Peterson thing. I'm a lifelong, diehard Minnesota Vikings fan. I'm wearing a Twins hat right now. It's where my dad's side of the family's from. And I finally got Adrian Peterson on my fantasy football team for the first time like ever. And I've been playing fantasy football for over a decade. So excited about it. And today, if you're watching this, is the day that he was indicted and being accused of all this crazy stuff as far as injuring a child. I will not pass judgment until I have more facts. Things don't look good. He was actually already deactivated for the game on Sunday. But we'll see what happens in the future. You know, I'm behind the guy until there's a reason for me not to be. So that all being said, y'all take it easy, have a good one, be safe, and I'll talk to you soon.